Okay, guys, so we're going to keep on rolling along here with factoring. Today we're looking at factoring trinomials, but we're taking a look at some of the special cases that we sometimes run into when we're factoring trinomials. So one of the special cases is where we get a trinomial that doesn't have a 1 in front of the x squared. So you can see here we've got a 3 in front of the x squared, and that may make you think that it's a complex trinomial. But in this case, we can actually take the 3 out as a common factor. And remember, we already talked about why it's important to take out a common factor first. It really does simplify things. So if I take 3 out, 3 is the greatest common factor there. So I would get x squared plus 1x minus 6 when I factor that. And now you can see the trinomial that I have in the bracket is a simple trinomial. So I'm going to leave the 3 out in front. I'm going to write my 2 brackets. Remember that when this sign is negative here, I know that I'm going to get 1 plus and 1 minus down here. I know I'm going to have an x at the start of each bracket. And now I'm trying to find 2 numbers that multiply to give 6 and subtract to give 1. So 2 numbers that multiply to give 6 and have a difference of 1 are 3 and 2. And you can see up here when we've got the plus here, that means we need more positives than negatives. So that's going to be a plus 3 and a minus 2 there. So that is what our final answer looks like here. So even eventually we're going to learn the methods of solving complex trinomials. And complex trinomials are trinomials where we've got a number other than 1 in front of the x squared. But even when we do get to those ones, we really have to check for a common factor first. By taking the common factor out, it just simplifies things. And oftentimes on tests, I'll just write CFF, and that just means common factor first. And generally that just means if you had common factor first, that would have made life a lot easier for you to solve the question. Special case number 2 here is when you have 2 variables. So you can see here it looks kind of scary because we've got x squared next, but then y shows up there as well, and we've got a y squared on the 3rd term instead of just having like a regular constant like 36. Here's all you need to think about here. We're going to write our 2 brackets just like we would normally. We know that we've got an x at the start of each bracket. This y squared here just means that we're going to have a y at the end of each bracket with whatever number we come up with there. And then for the number part and the sign part, we do the same thing we normally do. So here we've got a positive here, so both these signs down here have to be the same. And because that one's positive, these 2 are going to be positive. And then we're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to get 36 and add to 12. And so the numbers that work there are 6 and 6. So 6 times 6 gives you 36, and 6 plus 6 gives you 12. And you can see we've got the same thing in each bracket, so we can actually write it as x plus 6y squared. So this is actually a perfect square trinomial here, because when we factor it, we get x plus 6y squared. The last special case we're going to look at is where the question's written backwards. So we like it with x squared at the start, then the x term, then the constant term. So all you're going to do when you run into this situation is rewrite it. So we're going to move the x squared up to the front. We'll move the 36 to the back. So when we do that, now the question's going to look like x squared minus 12x plus 36. And then you can go ahead and solve it from there. So we need 2 numbers that are the same sign, because that's positive, and in this case we've got a negative there, so these signs will both be negative. So we have x and x, two negatives, so we need two numbers that multiply to get 36 and add to get 12, and so that's going to be 6 and 6. So our answer for this one is x minus 6 squared. Now if I do the same thing with the other one, so I'm going to move negative x squared to the front, and I'll move plus 16 to the back. So when I rewrite that guy, it's going to be negative x squared minus 15x plus 16. And now the issue is that we need that to be a positive x squared at the start. So what we're going to do is we're going to take minus 1 out as a common factor. So if I factor the negative 1 out of each of those terms, now the expression looks like that. And so now inside the bracket, I can factor that as a simple trinomial. So I've got my two brackets. I've got x and x. Remember, when this sign is negative, that means we've got a positive and a negative here. So I need two numbers that multiply to get 16 and subtract to give 15. So numbers that multiply to 16 and subtract to get 15, the only numbers that are going to work there are 16 and 1. And because this is a plus 15, we're going to get 16 for the positive and 1 for the negative. And remember that whenever you check your trinomial factoring, these two numbers multiply to give that number. So 16 times negative 1 gives you negative 16. And these two numbers, when you put them together and add them together, they have to add to this number here. And 16 and minus 1 add to positive 15. So that is our correct answer there. Okay, so that's the end of this note. I know it's short. You're probably disappointed. We'll practice this stuff tomorrow. Thanks.